Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever episode of the Mission Debrief,
where after every mission, we'll get together and walk you through the journey of the pivotal moments of an honor flight experience.
My name is Alex.
And I'm Haley.
And we are here at Honor Flight Columbus headquarters. Today, we're going to talk about a lot. It is a lot to unpack on our first episode, but we are going to talk about a very commemorative mission, and that is
October 10th, 2024, Mission 136. We flew our 10,000th veteran out of this hub.
10,000th veteran. It's kind of hard to put your mind around, to be honest. I know, Haley, you had said, have you ever seen 10,000 of anything, just laid out? Of course, my answer was blades of grass, but I get it. That's it's kind of it's hard to realize how many 10,000 is, but it's just a small number compared to the veterans that
it's true
are
waiting
for flights.
But I think what I hope people get out of this is listening. Yeah, 10,000 is a big number, but we did this one at a time, 1 + 1 + 1 until we got to 10,000. So every single individual story, every individual life that we've encountered is significant.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mission 136. You give us some stats. What are we talking about? Who was involved? How many veterans did we take that day? These are Vietnam veterans. They're Korean veterans. Give the people some insight on that.
92 veterans total. We had 90 men and 2 service women, which is always a treat. And we're hoping to fly more and more ladies. Majority of them were Vietnam eras.
Yep.
That is it's what we're seeing now at this point. We started flying Vietnam veterans towards the end of 2016. Yep. So since then, that's kind of been the majority.
I love it. So let's talk about it from beginning to end, what a day looks like. A lot of people that are listening have either been on an honor flight mission or just don't know what's involved. Arrival at the airport. For this hub, for Columbus, we arrive at John Glenn International Airport. Veterans started arriving at about 6 to 6:30 in the morning, but there's people there before that. Tell us about who arrives first. Who gets there?
Rodney Ellis.
Rodney Ellis.
Yes.
He's
our team lead of our ground crew. So him and his crew, like Jim Hutchison, Barry Miller, Eric McWhorter, a lot of these people, the people who are checking in veterans. So that would be Marky Boggs. Rick's also there as part of the media team. So you have these groups of people who are part of these different teams that are preparing the airport before the veterans arrive, before I arrive. I'm there at 5. Sometimes 4:45, but that was really only once, if I'm being honest. So I think what always blows my mind is when I walk into the airport, everything's all set up. Mm-hmm. Like there's over 50 wheelchairs, all perfectly lined up, ready to take out to the curb, ready to greet the veterans. You've got your tables where everybody's checking in. So you've got your 3 buses, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Each one is a stop that the veterans are coming in, they're checking in, they're meeting the people they're going to spend the day with. So it's a really nice way to start the day, is to actually meet the faces, kind of take a minute before we head up to the plane.
Right on. So like we said, shout out to Rodney and his team. Rodney is an amazing individual. He is.
You got to spend some time with Rodney.
I got to spend time with Rodney. Rodney holds a special place in my heart. I don't know about if I'm a special place in his heart.
I think not. Probably.
Every time I come across the way, he's hassling me, but I ask him for extra hugs because he's just an amazing guy. And he gives the biggest bear hug in the world when he wants to.
And he's the star of our promotional video, which you can check out on our YouTube.
Yeah, which I know probably made him uncomfortable. He's like a man behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to serve and not be seen. We'd rather be fishing, as he
he would rather be fishing.
I had asked him actually last flight. I said, what are you doing tomorrow? Like, what goes on? He goes, well, wake up and I go fishing, then I go to work. I'm like, you fish before wait, you got to catch your lunch? What's going on?
Yeah.
He's an amazing guy.
He has pet fish too. So he's all about the fish.
And Navy man.
And a Navy man, which classic, makes sense.
Yeah. Just go fishing, man. Just go fishing.
Everybody else golfs.
So we get there, we get checked in. People, they get their picture taken. The veterans, get their photographs taken for roll call. Mm-hmm. Coco. Hey, shout out to Coco.
Our little puppy friend.
Yeah. A service dog, emotional support dog for veterans, especially. I believe Coco was in a tutu
most of the time she's got a rotation of tutus.
Yes.
Which is really fun.
Absolutely incredible. So
She wears them well.
Shout out to Coco. Coco's amazing. If you're ever honor flight, Columbus mission, you'll see Coco.
Yeah, you
trust me. Okay, so they get their picture taken. We get through TSA.
This is a treat.
It is definitely a treat. And like you and I had talked about earlier, taking a flight afterwards, a normal flight that's not you realize how
it's kind of dangerous now.
Spoiled. Yeah. Because I get hit for everything. I get dinged for everything. It took, my soda away. I'm like, I can have soda. Oh, I cannot have soda now. I have to take my shoes off now. What happened?
Only 3 point something ounces or something like that.
Yeah. Well, so
we go through the exit of TSA.
Yeah.
So all we have to do is present the appropriate.
That makes sense of why I went the wrong way last way. Oh my goodness. Now it's just constant. I go the wrong way through everything. Okay.
No, you can't blame us for that.
Yeah, I can.
That's not.
They treat us too well.
So you use your real ID starting in May.
Okay. Tell us about that. This is going to be a change.
Yeah, this is a big change, and it's something that we sent out a memo. If you're on our wait list, you entered our wait list before November. You got a letter from us saying this, but finally, 2025, I believe May 2025, real ID is the only thing you can use. You can't use your driver's license. There are other documents that you can use, so you can check those out on TSA's website. But the big one that I think would be helpful for people to know is you can use your veteran health identification card.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
And they would know what that is. The veterans would know what that is.
Yeah. If you get your healthcare from the VA, this would also be a great time to ask the VA, or you can call our office. We've got people who can help point you in the right direction in terms of VA resources. And then a passport might be easier to get than a real ID for some people.
Really?
But that's my opinion though. That's not based on anything.
The real ID, how would one know that it is a real ID?
Isn't there a star
There
up
is
in
a
the
star
corner?
up in the corner. Yeah. You'll see it. That way you can use them on flights instead of passports, intercountry.
I've been using my passport because mine's expired. But.
Really?
Yeah. But you got 6 months in the state of Ohio.
Yep.
So we go through the exit of TSA, and TSA is it's a gift. Most people wouldn't say TSA is a gift. They're so friendly.
It definitely is.
But they are for us. They're so friendly to us. We're so appreciative for all that they do for us. So then we get through there, and then now we're through the gate, and we're going straight to the plane.
Yep. And which Honor Flight Columbus uses Southwest Airlines.
Southwest exclusively right now.
Which I'm a big Southwest fan.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. Super Southwest fans. They treat us absolutely amazingly. I can't say enough about them. Their teams they're so humble as well,
and they're intentional.
And they're very intentional. Mm-hmm. They always, usually the pilots that are there every single flight, they'll say, I was Navy and I was Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually veterans. They'll give a breakdown so you can kind of, these veterans can kind of relate with them.
And it's actually, I don't know if you've caught this in talking to the flight attendants, but this is typically it's a chartered plane. So it's just us. We're the only ones on there. And it's kind of something that you have to request based on seniority as a flight attendant. And it's a pretty highly sought after.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a highly sought after spot, whether it be with Columbus or even other airlines with other hubs. It's something that people are looking to do.
Yeah, and like I said, they're very accommodating.
Very accommodating.
We've got a lot of different needs on the plane.
And they also let us kind of run the show.
Yep.
Not in terms of safety and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They're 100% the boss.
Not the seatbelt situation.
Not the seatbelt situation.
I know that situation. Me and my gear. I always get yelled at. But they are absolutely amazing. We have a little breakfast treat on the way. There's always veterans at the gate handing veterans.
You meant volunteers.
Yes.
Although some of them can be veterans too.
Handing out sack lunches.
Yes.
They have on the plane. So it's an amazing little snack.
From another community partnership.
Yep.
And so then we get on the plane, and then, as soon as we can get going, we can get going. So this is another huge thing that I don't think a lot of people realize how big of a blessing it is that Southwest has said, okay, Honor Flight Columbus, you have a method that you want to use to load your plane. You do your thing. We're going to step to the back, call us when you need us, because then we can do this much quicker because we know the ins and outs, us specifically in the office, especially Director of Veterans, Megan. She is very aware of all the different mobility cases. Mm-hmm. So her and I load that plane with with EMTs who stand at the front, making sure that, if you are a transfer, if you have to transfer out of a wheelchair, that they're doing it in a safe, dignifying manner.
Yep.
So then we load up that plane, and we aim to be out between 7:15 and 7:45. It just totally depends on our takeoff time.
Yep. Very special plane on this flight.
Yes.
Yeah. And we also had talked about this just a little bit ago, that I did not know that we were on Freedom 1. I had seen pictures of it before, definitely after, because I Googled it like crazy. I'm like, I cannot believe I missed it. But
that shocks me.
Yeah,
so
I knew it was a
in case
bigger
you don't
plane.
know what Freedom 1 is,
Yep.
This is a bigger plane.
Yep.
It's an American flag wrapped 737.
Yeah. It's only one
It's
of a
the only
kind.
one.
Yeah. And I missed it. I mean, I saw
Twice.
the doors.
You missed it twice because we rode it home.
Yeah, I know. It was dark. It was dark
feel
when we leave and
responsible
dark
for
when
that.
we left again, or when we arrived again. Yeah, I know.
Oops.
I know. I saw the doors when you walk in, but it's still.
Well, our other media volunteer, Ryan, who went with us, he got pictures of it, and they're really great. So if you check out our gallery on our website for Mission 136, October 10th, you can see some pictures of Freedom 1.
That's super cool. I hope I get to see it again, just in passing.
Yeah.
I'm sure they keep it at a hub somewhere, where they don't fly it as much, but.
So because we took a bigger plane, we were able to take more veterans this time.
Yep.
So this was just something really special we got to do because of who our sponsor was. Our sponsor was the Reagan McNamara family for this flight. And so we typically book 86 veterans or hope to fly about 80 to 86 veterans. And we flew 92 veterans this time. So there were 90 male, 2 female, as we mentioned. And then...
and who books all those?
Well, this flight was a really particular case. So typically I would tell you our veteran call team books these folks. But this flight was booked by one veteran. So
no way.
Think about it this way.
I don't know 92 people to call right now.
You would if I gave you a list.
Right.
So we gave Bob Schmidt a list, and he came into this office, and he booked more than just this flight too. So keep that in mind. But this flight was all him. He called 90. It was actually more than 92 veterans, because by the time you cancel a few, so it was like 100 veterans after a couple canceled because they were sick and stuff. So he's calling every single one more than once, right? Because you didn't pick up the phone the first time, so he's going to call you a second time. He's going to call you a third time because he's getting you on this flight.
That's cool.
So Bob was calling every single one, kept a list, got to know these people. And then I caught him when we were actually on the mission, where he's like going up, shaking their hand, and talking about that first conversation they had over the phone.
That's neat.
Which was so cool. And then what makes it even more special is Bob's been a long-time volunteer of ours, and he actually took his honor flight on this mission. So
Really?
he flew as a
That's
veteran.
neat.
Yes.
That's
and
neat.
then his travel
he
buddy.
earned this honor flight, especially.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We made him work for it. I don't know what that says about us. But, and then his travel buddy was Bob Skinner, who's also part of our veteran call team, calling for other missions as well.
That's neat.
And a veteran himself. So that was a really cool opportunity.
That is super cool. So thank you to Bob. Thank you, Bob, for doing that. And I think it's a neat aspect now that I'm thinking about it with him, because he could talk to every single veteran on that flight. He's the only one who knew every single veteran in some point or another. So
we knew him by like paperwork, but he knew their voice.
Right.
It was really cool.
That's pretty cool. They had somebody welcoming him that, they talked to beforehand.
Yes.
So it's a little ease into it.
Yes. Which is kind of the atmosphere, right? Like everything we do is about making you feel welcomed and honored and celebrated. And it wasn't any different when we landed in DC.
Yeah. So DC was big. It was extra special. Every time we land in DC, there's always a crowd, especially crowds that are waiting to get on flights. It's amazing to see. I know, when I grew up, airports before 9/11, a lot different.
Tell me about those.
Right.
What did they look like?
So TSA was a lot easier to get through. That's for sure. The honoring veterans, honoring servicemen, active in the airport, it was a lot different. Yeah. Back then, things have changed a little bit. Times changes and society changes. However, when we get to DC, they know we're coming.
Yeah.
There's crews there beforehand. I think somebody passes out American flags because they know when they're
Southwest also, I've noticed, has signs both at both Columbus and in DC.
Yeah.
So they'll
I know
to
because
the crowds.
I was holding up with Terry taking selfies.
Yes, you were
on that flight. Yeah,
which are also in the gallery.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that until just now. She was like, here, take my picture. And then every veteran that got on the flight, like, well, we want one too. Let's frame it up.
Then we left really late that day.
Yeah, we did.
Just kidding.
My bad. No, we got there in DC. It was an amazing crowd.
And tell us about who else was there welcoming us. I mean, they came with us, but.
A special young man who I have been ever since have been following. And I have found that I know people in relation that him and I also know. They're like, oh my gosh. After that flight, people said, you know Brody Alexander? And I go,
Brody
yes.
the Bagpiper?
Brody the Bagpiper. You'll see him all over the news, from Wendy's to Ohio
waves.
State to, the Senate, stuff like that. He is an incredible young man, 17, I believe, years old.
And genuinely one of the most impressive volunteers I've ever had the honor of meeting. Ever.
He is one of the most genuine souls. And at his age, especially, you wouldn't expect it. I know we stereotype a lot, with younger, with the youths. But he was just, from the moment he started talking, the most gentling, welcoming voice, and kind soul. Brody, you're amazing. If you're listening, we appreciate you. Always showing up to Honor Flight. I know he has a long history with Honor Flight missions.
Since he was just a little boy.
So if you were on that flight or you saw anything about that flight, you saw Brody.
Yes.
He was dressed and he was at every memorial, every stop on the way, making these gentlemen.
Carrying those bagpipes
and playing. So he is.
And it started when they arrived at the airport in Columbus and then continued out as he played them out of Reagan into the buses, which would the next stop of the day.
I was actually welcoming some veterans, getting out of cars and such that morning. It was like 6:15, barely had the camera rolling. And all of a sudden, in that underpass, there was a whole line of amazing. And I turned around, I was like, what? They got a speaker? What's going on? And I saw him from far away. And I didn't actually get to talk to him until we landed. And I was just completely thrown back by him. Amazing man.
That's one of the best parts about doing media on flights is the people that you intentionally find yourself talking to. And Brody's one of those.
Yeah. He's gonna be around for a while. He's an amazing kid.
I hope so. He better be.
Yeah.
Apparently this is the Brody podcast.
Yeah, it's the Brody podcast. We should have Brody here right now. Brody,
where are you? So he played us out into the buses, and that's where we get into one of our first big partnerships of the day that I will talk about till I'm blue in the face.
Well, right in between that as well, I always see some of the same volunteers.
Yes,
there's some
on the DC
there.
side of it.
Yep, they're there already.
That's true.
Pointing us in the right direction and clapping us all the way in. So thank you. Shout out to those individuals who always show. There is a special woman that's
Mary.
there. Mary?
Yes.
That's in uniform?
Mary Quigley, yes.
Is that her name?
Yes.
Yes, I always see her, and I always want to ask her name, but she treats me like she's known me all my life, and she's like, good to see you.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but her name is on her uniform.
I don't.
Because she's in uniform.
I look through the lens. I don't look anywhere around me. So if I've run into you, I apologize. Literally, I just look through the lens and I don't look up.
That's why Beth says I have to follow you now.
Yes. Keep me under control.
But Mary takes us. Mary actually is the one is kind of making sure, hey, cross here, don't cross here, welcoming the vets. But there's a logistic point to that as well. And then we get over to the buses, and these are our DC trail buses. That's the name of the company.
Amazing individual who I've gotten very close with.
Yes.
We all have.
We're obsessed.
If you've been there once, especially once, but more than once, you know these guys like family.
Yeah, they really are. And I think it's things like that, like you and I can sit around and talk about the logistics all day. Us in the office, we complain these things, even the volunteers. But it's these kind of uncontrollables. We don't necessarily choose who's driving our buses. We request them now. But Caesar, who's been our lead bus driver for a really long time now, he's assembled these teams for us when we fly. And it's been incredible to see. They're not just safe and good drivers. They're intentionally going after relationships with our veterans. And that includes somebody he brought on, I think we were saying it was in the late spring, but Trey, who's in active duty, he's in the Navy. So you have like all these connections.
And I did not know that.
Really?
Actually, his first couple of flights, I was on his bus. I think maybe my second flight.
What a hoot.
Yeah, and he said something about being in the Navy, but I thought he was... because he was driving the bus. I'm like, oh, okay, he's a veteran, right? No, he's active.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. And then now we've added a third bus driver, which you'll hear more about in the next season. I call him Mike, but he might prefer Michael now that I'm saying it out loud.
I thought you were going to say his name's Mike, but it's really not Mike.
It's not really Mike. No, it's Michael,
Yep.
but I call him Mike. So, I'll sort that out on the next flight.
Right.
But I think we see them in February. I'll ask him about it. So now we have these 3 guys. And then, if one of them can't make it or whatever, Caesar always fills with somebody awesome that we're so blessed for. So we get out there to the bus, and one of the things that I think blows my mind now that I do operations side of things is understanding wheelchairs and lifts and how important it is that those bus drivers are on it. And they're on it. And we get off and we get going and we're able to make up time, or we're able to move things around flexibility wise because they're on it. So we love our
and
DC
they're
trails.
good at what they do, because I know there's been quite a few times different flights and possibly this flight. I don't remember that specific moment, but they adjust very fast.
Very quickly.
They know how many wheelchairs we are going into it, but sometimes they'll have to adjust full rows of seats.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To get the right thing.
Yeah, my bossy butt just goes up and says, Caesar. And he sees this look in my eyes and he knows there's an order coming.
He's like, I'm moving seats. What's going on? So we get on this. First stops.
Yes.
So let's talk about where we're headed.
So schedule can change. So as you are listening to this podcast and you start going from mission to mission, you'll find there are some changes. And sometimes those changes are on purpose. Sometimes they are us just being flexible and adjusting to ensure that our veterans are having the best day they can. So for this mission, 136, we started at the Air Force Memorial, which was cool this fall because there's been a lot of construction going on. There still is around the memorial, but we were actually able to go into the memorial.
That was the first time
you ever flight, had been, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been there with all the construction,
right.
So we couldn't get into a lot of parts of it. It did, I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. There was always a gate.
Yeah.
And
now it's a completely different entrance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now you can take cool selfies, on the ground looking up and everything.
Yes.
It was pretty neat. So.
And then we moved from Air Force. On this flight, we went to Arlington National Cemetery for the changing of the guard.
Yep.
So this is a cool one too, because typically, like if you and I were to just show up right now and go to Arlington, we're walking or we're taking the trolley, or it's a thing to get there, which isn't a bad thing because you can see a lot of the cemetery. But we have clearance with our bus drivers and with Arlington specifically. They work with us so that we can take our veterans literally to the Tomb of the Unknown.
I did not know that.
Them. Yeah.
Now it makes sense because you don't see cars coming up and dropping people off.
Well, you've noticed on these last couple flights, and
people walking as we leave too. They're like walking down that big hill. I'm like, why don't you get out of the way?
Well, yeah, but if you've noticed, I think it was on 1010. I think this actually happened. It was certainly the last 2 flights for sure, but dignitaries are the only ones that are allowed up there.
Yep.
So we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting.
Shout out to the Italian army generals that were there.
Yeah, that's right. And then I think there was like Ambassador Greece. I don't remember. But the point is the veterans are given the same treatment as the dignitaries. They're brought up through these buses and dropped off there.
It's pretty cool.
And I think, of course, there's a logistic component to that for mobility issues and just ease of access and quicker so we don't miss stops. But I think it's what I would want our veterans to understand is, this is for you.
Yep.
This is your cemetery. And your brothers and sisters are here.
Ironically enough, too, I think because the dignitaries were there, they were there because one representative from Arlington said they've been coming in and out all day the past 2 days from different countries because they were leading up to Veterans Day.
Yeah.
And so all these different military generals from all around the world were coming to pay respects for Veterans Day.
Yeah, that's a good point in November. Because the small rotunda piece, was all completely,
completely
roped
done.
off.
So it was really neat to see veterans there, and then dignitaries from other countries coming to pay their respects.
And one of the things that also happens a lot here, Mission 136 was no different, is you have school kids. A lot of times they're at Arlington.
Yep.
So they are, that I think, it doesn't matter how many times you see it. It still takes me back, to see kids. And we're not even talking about high schoolers most of the time. I mean, these are like young kids who are of this age where it's awkward. It's weird to talk to adults, especially older adults. Maybe, some in wheelchairs, some not. That can be really awkward, but they are going up and they're shaking hands.
Yeah. We saw some pretty big smiles. I remember on video.
Huge smiles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It means a lot to these. And then even when we arrived in DC, there was a line of kids literally waving American flags and shaking their hands, as they got off the flight, which means a lot.
It's everything. I mean, I'll never forget. I think one of the most life-changing moments I've ever had is when a mentor of mine said, who's also a veteran, we went to Normandy. We went to D-Day, the beaches. And one of his family friends was part of that first wave on Omaha Beach, combat engineer. And he asked his friend, he said, do you want me to bring anything back? You know, when I take these students over, is there anything you want back? He said, I want you to have your kids stand. He told him the exact location of where he blew a hole through the Atlantic Wall, and said, I want the kids' pictures there because that's why I did it. So ever since then, it's like now I see these kids with our vets, and it's like, that's why they did it.
Yeah.
Right there. The kids have no idea.
Right. And they don't understand, which reasonable.
Yeah, of course.
It's age.
They'll look back.
It's different time, but they'll look back and they'll kind of see that. Okay. So
then we head to the Navy Memorial, which has been a really, in recent flights, I think it was all fall for sure, we've been doing lunch there. So the Navy Memorial, also the staff there has just been really, really helpful in being flexible with us. They provide an indoor space if we need it, but it's a pretty cool memorial because it's like right in the heart of the city.
Yep.
So this is the first DC stop because the other two are technically in Virginia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when we crossed the bridge.
I thought everything was in DC. I'm just happy to be there.
Bless your bones.
Yeah, right. I'm on a DC Trails bus. I figured I'm in DC.
Yeah, no, they pick you up in Virginia. Oh. And sometimes they take you to New York, but not us.
Yeah, I know.
You can go anywhere in those buses. But so the Navy Memorial is in the heart of DC, which is kind of a cool. This is the first time I've stopped and actually thought, oh, that's our first DC stop.
Yeah.
And so it's a really, I think, particularly because there's water involved with the fountains. Of course, there's like a lot of really amazing symbolism that we'll probably get to in another episode. But being surrounded by water, being surrounded by veterans, and then having the social component is kind of cool. I think at first when we started doing that, I thought it was kind of weird to eat in a memorial like that. But it's their memorial.
It's there for that purpose as well.
Yeah, it is.
Being outside because...
And the veterans want that. They want you to do that.
And I wonder too, I've always thought two things about that memorial, a million, but one of them being people come and go and sit there all day long. And I wonder if they know it's even a memorial.
That's so true.
At sometimes. The second piece being, I find it very peaceful there.
Very.
Because there is a million things going on, people getting food, people, if you need to see an EMT or whatnot, get hydrated, you're talking with your guardians, you're just sightseeing. There's a lot of people talking, but the water drowns everything out and it's white noise and it's very relaxing. It's really neat to sit there and just in the middle of the city and just take a deep breath.
I think that's what's so cool about it because it's across from the National Archives. Yep. It's just down the street from the White House. You're in kind of the heart of the business and the hotel region of the city, and then a memorial's there. And I think that's one of the things, yes, it's really cool that we have a lot of memorials on the mall. But that's one of the things that I love about having even the Marine Corps Memorial, Air Force, and Navy outside of the mall, because I think it's really important that people have these opportunities. Now, whether they're doing it or not is, between them and themselves, but you have this opportunity. You're walking downtown, you're going to work, and there's the Navy Memorial. And I think when we're there and you see 92 veterans in red polo shirts, it hits you. It can't not.
Yep. Yeah. It's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, we are. That's so true. So anyways, we do lunch there.
Yep.
And one of our longtime favorite vendors, Ace, he's always there. And I think too, it's that same thing we were talking about with DC Trails. It's like 1010, especially because leading up to it, everything we were doing was all about reflection.
Yeah.
It was all about, it's not about, wow, we've arrived, we've made it somewhere, but it's about, look where we've been. Look at all of the people, all the lives that have been part of this. And Ace has been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
So he's catering Arby's sandwiches.
And to be fairly honest, and I know what you're going to say, I just thought Ace was Ace. Like by the second or third flight, I knew his name and I come up and I'd be like, "Hey, Ace."
Yeah, that's not
and
even the name of his.
This guy?
That's not even the name of his company.
Yeah, I know. And I was just like, "Hey, Ace," and he's like, "All right, who's this guy?" So by the fourth or fifth time, I was in there.
He's so polite, though.
But hearing his whole story, and he told us the whole story from the very beginning about how he got involved. It's absolutely incredible. I would not have guessed.
Well, he's an immigrant too, which that was a really cool.
And to
cool
hear
story
him,
to hear.
And to hear him talk about what it means to him, I feel like sometimes he's got the handle on it more than a lot of Americans do.
Oh, I agree.
And how proud he is to be here
Yeah.
you know, and proud, you know.
And proud to serve veterans in this capacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this isn't something that he's making bukus of money off of.
Yeah.
You know, he's so kind, he's so good to us.
Yeah.
And even like we had a medical situation on a warm flight. We needed an umbrella, you know, because it was so hot. And so I walked over and I'm looking for umbrellas, and he comes over to me, sees that I'm looking for something, and just says, "Hey, do you need something?" And I was like, I'm trying to find an umbrella. And he's like, "I've got it." And then it's like, he comes back with an umbrella, comes back with water.
I wonder what else he's got. Why don't we just ask him random things?
We should.
Yeah. Like,
What do I look like I'm looking for, Ace?
Right.
What do you think I need?
do you have an apple and a book I could borrow?
Probably. So that kind of thing, like just seeing how he loves on our veterans is huge. And again, it's that family component that we see. So, so then once Ace stocks us up with water and fills up our coolers again for the second time in the day, he comes at the airport and does that as well. Then we head off. We typically after lunch, but specifically on Mission 136, we headed to our longest stop of the day.
Yep.
And where are we stopping? And where are we going?
World War II Memorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an incredible sight to see.
Yeah, it is.
If you've never been there, I mean, you see it, you know, in pictures and in movies and such all the time, you know, right beside the Washington Monument, but it is a sight to see. I've taken a little bit more time, especially 1010. I got to see a different side of it. I never went to the other side, but you and I had actually, we went with Brody.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get some pictures, to reenact something when he was young, a picture, you know, on that side of it.
He had saluted the Freedom Wall, which has all the stars that represents all those who had fallen in World War II. And he was there with his great-grandfather, who was a World War II veteran.
Yep, and that's neat.
And his great-grandfather, I think, was wearing his service jacket.
Yeah.
And then in this picture,
Brody's wearing
his grandfather had since passed, and he was standing in the same spot wearing the same jacket.
That was neat.
It was so cool.
It was really cool to see. So there's
we should put that out there.
There's a lot of stuff to see around there that, you know, you just don't notice unless you take a walk and, you know, you see, because it's so
Have you
grand.
seen Kilroy?
Kilroy?
Okay. Next flight. I'll take you.
Okay. So there is a special presentation that happens.
Yes. This is a really important moment, I think. I think all hubs feel the same way about this, but I know, speaking from Honor Flight Columbus specifically, we started to take World War II veterans to their memorial. So this is always a really important moment, every single flight, where we stop and we think, kind of. There's really not a better way to say that. And one of the big things we talked about when gearing up for 1010, like we did some social media stuff, we did a commemorative logo, we had stories, all of that. But it's not a more special flight than any other flight. It's just as significant. It's just as important. We just wanted to take a moment and stop and reflect the way that we always do. We wanted to bring other people along for that reflection. So when we stopped there, Beth, our executive director, shared some thoughts that really stick with me still. Just kind of this idea that the celebration, it's not about Honor Flight Columbus. It was never about Honor Flight Columbus. It was never about Network. It was never about you or me or any of the volunteers. It's always been about the veterans, because you don't get to 10,000 if 3 don't say yes, if 275 don't say yes, all the way up until we get now past 10,000. And it's about each and every veteran who said yes to their honor flight, experienced healing at the wall, and made friends from strangers, giving us the privilege and honor of hearing their stories. So that's kind of what we stopped and we talked about and reflected over together quickly. And then, of course, the presentation of the flag to the eldest veteran, which started as a tradition for World War II.
Yeah. And somebody very special was on this flight.
Yes.
Who?
Yeah, tell us about him.
I've got...
He's fanboying.
I'm a fanboy.
We all are.
Over Earl Morse, one of the founders of Honor Flight.
Network, the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Whole shebang.
Incredible force to reckon with as well. He was a very tall gentleman. You know, you see him online and you're like, can't be that tall. And then there's a picture of him and I'm just like,
yeah, I know. I think
just
surely
a little
I'm not
guy.
that short.
Yeah, just a little guy right next to him. But he, and the way he speaks, his heart, you know, to start something like this, you have to have a huge heart. And we'll talk more about, you know, that founding story
on the next episode.
The next episode. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he is I remember telling, and I didn't know what to tell him, you know, you get excited to talk to somebody and I had so much to say. And I said, you know, I hope someday that I can start something that'll trickle down past me.
Yeah.
That would be so out of control. It's out of my hands.
Yeah.
But he just steps away and says, I did it for a purpose, and other people are carrying on that purpose, and to serve veterans.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point. And he, a veteran himself, and
Air Force.
Yeah, and he is just. There's illuminating light around the guy.
It is.
I'll stop fanboying about it, but he is.
It's hard not to, but I think it's important too. I know he'll be mortified to hear us go on and on about him, but what I wanted to say to him, I had written a note to him several times to give to him, and it was just like never. Yeah, never. I couldn't do it, and so I like to write instead of speak, but I felt like because I was uncomfortable, I should speak.
Yeah.
And so I just remember before we interviewed him, I just kind of wanted to take a minute and let him know, the point of this whole organization was to fly vets. But every person who's been involved has been changed. My life has been completely changed through this organization. And you talk about how you hope one day to do something that trickles down. That's what you're doing here. Yeah. If you're a part of this organization, you get to be part of that. Specifically you. I mean, you're our resource on all these different media and all this like outreach stuff that's growing so we can find more people. And that doesn't happen. That's not something we could have attained without you or this podcast.
Yeah.
So you're a part of that. And Earl started that ball rolling, but somebody else had to pick it up. And here we are,
I just wonder.
Close to 20 years later.
You always think about, I wonder where I was the day he took, the first veterans over, and then how
2005. Where were you?
And I was graduating high school.
There you go.
And I think about it and I'm like,
I was 10.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. No, literally, think about what he was doing right then, and I had no idea in the world that I would ever be a part of it. And now I get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
It all just starts with one idea, one action, and now all these people, we talk about, it's for the veterans. We take them for the veterans because they deserve it. Every bit of it. They've earned, their honor flight. But if you've never had the opportunity to be a guardian or to help out in any capacity, it's the most fulfilling thing in the world.
It really is.
And it like you said, it will change your life, and it has for the better. Every single time when I thought I've heard everything, seen everything, got every feeling out, just hearing stories and seeing smiles on these.
And I think that's why what was really cool on this flight specifically. A lot of times I would just step back and watch people interact with Earl. Mm-hmm. And for the reason,
was it me? Was I like shaking and like
you were part of that.
Twirling?
Yeah, you were. You like twirled your hair.
Yeah,
like there was a giggle that was.
Yeah.
You should work on that. Awkward. That was embarrassing. The reason that I wanted to just step back and watch people interact with him is because I know they were feeling what I was feeling. This giddiness, this like we joke, yeah, he's the honor flight celebrity, but fundamentally, we all are saying thank you for saving our lives. Like there's elements of this organization that has brought me back to myself and to who I am. And I can name so many other people who have literally said to me, this organization saved my life.
Yep.
Not changed it, saved it. And so to get to step back and have Earl be part of this reflective moment, this commemorative opportunity for 10,000 and understanding that 10,000 is representative of.
And you know what he did?
So much bigger.
He downplayed it.
Every time. It's not me.
Yeah, it's not me. It's not me. I'm just happy to be here. Yeah. And I know you and I talked about that day. There's moments I catched on camera because I was afraid to talk to him. So I'm just following around. And all of a sudden he's carrying like whole pallets of water, at lunchtime and stuff, just serving veterans.
Okay, so how tall do you think he is?
8 foot in my eyes.
I was going 9. He's over 6'2".
Yeah, he's got to be.
He's got to be. And every time he talks with a veteran,
down on his knees,
he is on eye level.
Yeah.
And that you do this too.
Yeah.
That is something that is going to be a priority for me personally, but I want to encourage other people to do. That changes the game.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, it really hit me after this particular flight because I watched him do it and then realized I'd been watching you do it too. And so the next flight, I did that and my interactions were completely different.
There's a lot that I take very serious about any veteran I meet. I see them in Walmart, thank them for their service. There's an element of, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be able to give the life I can, to my little boys today, without their sacrifices.
Right.
Without them doing selfishly, what they did, and serving our country, in any and every and all capacities. I can never thank them enough. So I always feel, that I should be looking up to them. And I do, even in a physical way. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to emulate that here. The rest of us do. So all of this to say, we did this flag presentation that we do after every kind of, I say ceremony loosely, where we just kind of stop and reflect and pause. So Earl was able to present the flag to Mr. Roger Chapin. He's a 95-year-old Korean War veteran, served from 1947 to 1951, Marine Corps, stationed in South and Central Korea. So it was really special to get to see that presentation especially from one veteran to another. But then, of course, the founder of all of Honor
I don't
Flight.
think he understood that whole piece. Afterwards, there's
You mean Mr. Chapin?
Yeah. Because afterwards, he was, I think I have it on video.
Yes, you do have it on video.
Yeah, Earl was down on his knees talking to him. And he was in a wheelchair and just talking about, Earl, the way he talks to.
Well, he oh my gosh, sorry to cut you off. I have to make sure this is where you're going with this, because this brought me to tears. So after the flight, I was watching the footage that you captured, and I was in one of my post-flight depression days. So I'm like literally in the bed, rolling around my own filth and watching this footage over and over and over. And the audio where Earl just is looking at him in the eyes saying, you served in Korea, tell me about that. And so he's sharing that, whatever. And Earl just kind of holds his hand and says, you've been treated like you've been forgotten. You're not forgotten. Wow. This war was never been forgotten. That's why we're here. That's why we go to your memorial.
It's a hitter.
Yeah, it is.
It truly is. And he was really taken back. I remember.
Yes, he was.
Really watching that. But it's amazing. And you said, I know he served from 47 to 51. Typically, it's the oldest, and only a few of my flights have been World War II veterans.
True. We flew 6 last year, but none on 1010.
Yeah, and I think they're kind of thrown back, when all the veterans are there in line, and they're the ones getting it.
They don't know it's coming.
No, it's a very special, special thing. So,
and then so after we do World War II, we kind of break off for the rest of the day, or for the rest of the stop. So you as your group stay together. It's your guardian, which is the volunteer, and then the veterans. Usually a 2-to-1 ratio, one volunteer, and then you head off to
at your own pace
to the Korean War Memorial, and then over to Vietnam. And you and I usually just go straight to Vietnam, just knowing that we're trying to capture as many stories as we can.
And some people like to go straight there. They've been waiting a long time.
They've been waiting a long time.
And then they go to Korea afterwards. We're like, no, hey, why don't you go to Korea? But no.
Yeah, they beeline. And so while we want everybody to go to Korea for sure, understanding that the Vietnam Wall is just going to be different. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the memorial itself and why it matters so much. But personally on this trip, there was one veteran that there was a couple that I was really, and I guess I should stop and say, yes, we took Bob Schmidt, we took Bob Skinner. We also took some other volunteers, longtime volunteers of ours as veterans. And we had been talking about this for a while in the office. We wanted Frank Cheatham to go bad. He's one of our key EMTs for a long time.
That's fixed me up. Did he fix me up on that flight?
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't that flight. It was the last flight. Yeah, it wasn't his own flight that he wrapped your foot.
Yeah.
But for me personally, Frank's one of those that he doesn't know this, but he's one that he's been volunteering for a long time. And so I think he started before I did. So I've seen him from afar for a really long time. And I was always so intimidated by him. He reminds me of the mentor I was talking about earlier who took me to Normandy. And just this presence about them that demands respect, not out of a cockiness, but out of a humility that they've earned. And Frank doesn't boast about his service. He served in country, Vietnam. And I really wanted to see him at the wall. So part of my motivation was getting to the wall first, is I did not want to miss Frank at the wall. And I did, but you didn't. So we have footage of that. And something that was really cool was his guardian was another one of our EMTs, Jeremy, who actually was a student of Frank's as an EMT student or a medic student. I can't remember the connection there, but there was one. And so watching him kind of present his challenge coin to him at the wall was something really cool, which I'm really glad you captured. And then, of course, seeing Bob Schmidt there. His guardian, Deneen, is one of our longtime volunteers. She has a quote that I just wanted to share. When talking about both of her veterans, both Bobs, both were so very humble about their service, why they volunteer for HFC. I was very blessed to be able to be their guardian. And I realized throughout the day, based on their service stories about their families and after service careers, why they wanted to be volunteers. Two remarkable men who both wanted to honor, share, and celebrate other veterans.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really cool. And then we left Vietnam and went where?
We left. You always say that. We left Vietnam.
I know.
I'm like, where was I on that flight? That was a long flight to Vietnam. We left Vietnam. We got back on our amazing buses.
Yep.
DC Trails, and we headed over to the Women's Memorial.
The Military Women's Memorial at the base of Arlington National Cemetery.
Yep.
Really awesome partnership, which we'll always continue to talk about. We got to honor 2 women specifically.
Yep.
So members of our community here, part of the Honor Flight Columbus community, you can pay $26.50 to help sponsor a presentation.
Yep.
All of the money goes straight to this memorial and registering the stories of our ladies.
Yep.
So this is really big, especially because women in the military are not recognized the same as men, especially when we talk about Vietnam era, but of course, beyond that as well. So being able to do that is really special. So that's what the main attraction there is, that, and then dinner, which is catered by Mission Barbecue.
Yep.
And then it's back to the airport.
No,
you're right.
Afterwards.
You're right. There's one more stop.
Yeah.
Which I always forget.
Yeah. And it's always, especially that time of the year, it's sunset. Sunset's going down. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see.
It is really cool. Where are we going though?
The Iwo Jima Memorial.
The Marine Corps Memorial.
Yep. Yes. A sight to see. We can talk specifics about that one later, but it's always an amazing time, especially the Marines, get super excited. Yes. This is their moment.
They wait all day.
Yeah. And
hearing from Army
see
and
the
Navy.
See the other veterans that are, that are representing the Navy caps, the Army caps and stuff. And, they kind of stand back, and these guys get to go front. They're taking their pictures with the memorial. It's a sight to see.
It is.
It's super neat. Every conflict that the Marine Corps has ever been in, is inscribed on it. And I can always tell they're going around, slowly following it around in a circle to try to find theirs. Yeah. So
that's so true.
Very, very special, very amazing memorial. And then we're off to.
Now we're going to the airport.
Now we're going to Reagan.
Yeah, we're back to Reagan.
We're back to Reagan.
Flight home. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's really quiet.
Yeah. Sometimes the lights are on and everybody's chattering. Sometimes
usually once they're off and it's a dark plane ride, then
people are snoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some.
And they're like, oh, we got to get back up again because there's lots of people to be excited for.
Well, and at this point, a lot of our veterans, it's a long day. I mean, I think we're all kind of tired at this point. But we know, you and I know, and the rest of the volunteers know that there's something still waiting for them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. A very large crowd.
One of the biggest parts of the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mail call.
Mail call first. So they get off the plane and they make their way out of the exit of TSA, and we keep them together in groups. And before they enter what we call the gauntlet, so at Southwest Ticketing, if you're ever interested in coming, check out our schedule once it's posted for flight days. Get there about 8:45 to Southwest Ticketing.
You don't even need to go to Southwest Ticketing.
You can't miss it. We take up the whole terminal.
Go to the airport. You'll find it.
Yeah, just go to the airport. Follow the crowd. And this particular flight, we had about 2,500 people.
Yep. It's a sight to see.
The highest estimation I heard was 3,000, but I think probably closer to 2,500. So they exit and our volunteers are immediately greeting them with their mail call bags, which is incredible, which we'll probably talk even more in depth on another episode, what that is, what that means, why it's meaningful. And then their guardians take that and then they start going through the welcome home.
Yeah, it's something... like I said, it's a sight to see.
It is.
And it's very...
what's the first group that they see when they come through? Welcome home?
There's 2. The one I know of particularly.
That's the one I'm asking you.
Okay. In JRTC. Typically,
Junior ROTC.
Yeah, Junior ROTC. There's typically a couple schools, but the first school that's always right there, home to my heart, is Grove City High School, ROTC. And they are an incredible group of young ladies, young men,
Every flight they're there.
Every flight they're there.
Even the ones where we were stuck on the tarmac for 2 hours.
Yeah, even like late at night and they got to wake up at 6 a.m. for roll call, you know, at the high school. They're there, you know, to represent, and they do an amazing job.
They do.
Very skilled, very fine, very disciplined.
And then the veterans. So the way it worked for this particular mission was a little bit unique. We started with Brody playing everybody out. So we had kind of that lone bagpiper, which was really cool. Yep. And then they are greeted by Boots.
Mm-hmm. They're greeted by Boots. And then as well, right behind Boots, there is always the bagpiping community.
Yes.
That Brody joins in with.
Bagpiping community, that's so true. Which comes towards the end. So Boots kind of greets you, and you can't always hear the audio super well with that many people in the airport, but I don't think a lot of people realize that we do have the welcome home on video on our YouTube page. If you skip to the end of a mission video, you can see that, and you can see where Boots is taking his time to shake people's hands, to say thank you, to talk to them about their day. And I talked with him a little bit. Podcasting is kind of his thing. So we were talking a little bit about the podcast, and he made the comment that, here's his quote, "It's my honor to welcome them home, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And I will always do it as long as time and life makes it available." And he's always there.
Yeah,
he's a fixture.
He's always there, and he knows exactly. You know, he's been welcoming these veterans forever. He knows exactly how they feel. You know, he gets excited with them. You know, he shares that emotion with them, and it's hard to hear him when you're in the place because people are cheering so
people
loud.
Are freaking out.
But you know, when I'm right up next to him, I'm just like, you know, he acts like he's been their best friend forever.
Yeah,
and crazy.
He's tender. He's tender with them.
An incredible man, and we thank him a lot for that.
Yes, and we can't wait for the next season.
Right. And like you said, the welcome homes, 136 as well as the others, they're being filmed. Yes. You know, you get that camera as soon as Boots is welcoming them. And that is done by the amazing media team.
Yes, under Rick Boggs.
Incredible group, all the, you know, photographers.
There's a lot of time.
They spend a lot of time organizing all the photos from the Guardians, from the veterans.
Like when you gave me 1,700 photos, Rick went through every single one.
I don't think I can do that. It would take me a few months. So amazing.
He does it in a week.
Amazing team, very talented, and they put everything together very quickly for the veterans so that they can enjoy it afterwards. You know, they go home, they tell their families all about the experience, but nothing's like an experience where, you know, they sit down and share photos.
Yeah, I agree.
I did that just recently for
did.
Christmas. Yeah, Uncle Fred. He shared his flip book from his Guardian that was sent to him, and just his stories and everything that he holds on to. You know, and talks about, you know, Honor Flight Columbus so dearly, you know, is an amazing experience. So,
so I think after a full day like this, what is always so emotional, certainly, but I would say probably the most impactful is the welcome home. And I don't say that as my opinion, that's feedback. The veterans, when they write letters, will get calls. They come back to the airport and you'll see. So if you see a veteran who's there before we've arrived in a red polo shirt, it's because they've been. Yeah. And
even on that flight, I saw
even
red polos. And as we were getting ready and we were going down the gauntlet previous to get some shots, people were like, "Hey, Alex!" Like I know some of the veterans from previous flights, and they're there in their polos to welcome others. Yeah. And because it was
that's what kills me is these veterans are standing there and they are thanking us, which they have no business doing. We're not here. It's all because of them. And so to see the humility just continue even after their flight.
Right.
Yeah, it's inspiring.
Amazing. It moved them so much that they keep on returning.
Yes. Yeah. And which is a really great point about the welcome home is you don't have to know anybody to go. I mean, you can be part of this family. Look at me. I'm not a military brat. I don't know. Nobody served in my family. My grandfather was in the reserves, but you know, no active duty, and I'm here. You know, you're not a misfit.
Yep.
If you want to be part of this organization and serve veterans, you're part of this organization. Period.
Yeah, and honestly, I've been a part of a lot of nonprofit organizations. Nothing gives you. I know I boast it. Nothing gives you the feeling. Yeah. You know, like giving these fine men and women what they deserve. You know, and have been long overdue for. So
I'm thinking, I think the best way to kind of conclude this is kind of stopping and saying that while our next 10,000 veterans are going to look really different than our last, some things are going to stay the same. And this is kind of what you were saying, this element of service, honor, and sacrifice that connects all of our veterans, past, present, but also for future.
Yeah. And 10,000 is an amazing number.
It is.
Yeah.
But let's
10,000 of anything. Maybe I said 10,000 words today on this podcast, but
you say a lot of words, but I think I'm most excited for, 10,001.
yeah. It's been an amazing first episode. I know this episode is a little bit longer than the rest, but we had a lot to get through. It's a very commemorative mission. Next episode that you will be hearing, we are going to talk a little bit. We're going to dive into a little bit about what Honor Flight is and who we are and who Honor Flight Columbus is and who we serve, what we serve, and how we do it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. My name is Alex.
And I'm Haley.
And you are listening to the Mission Debrief. Take care.